is with, perfect. Thank you for recording, Jill. Today's session is the first in a three-part series. We're so excited to be able to offer, thanks to the talent and good graces of Kibibie Springs. Today's session with Career Strategies and Development is a growth mindset Kickstarter, and Kibibie will share with you what that is about. Our agenda for today includes some keynote address by Kibibie, some context setting and information sharing, and then the bulk of time will be spent in breakout rooms working with each other. Of course, if you have questions and would like to ask Kibibie or anyone else any questions, please use the Q&A function. Please also keep your eyes on the chat as well, because Jill and Kibibie will be putting content worksheets relevant to our discussion today in the chat files that you should be able to access. So do keep your eyes on the chat, please, throughout the session. And for upcoming CoreNet New England sessions, this coming Friday, tomorrow, Real Advantage is doing a workshop on the relevance of Do I Need Office Workplace? And of course, next Tuesday is the annual CoreNet Holiday Party. When you go online to register, and there's still time to do so, please ensure that you are checking whether you are registering for the virtual party, which will be held in person in Smith Group's offices, or the in-person is at Smith Group, and virtual will be a fun Zoom online holiday trivia session. Both should be quite fun. Of course, we love when you get engaged on social platforms and engage others in your network. The QR codes are here for you to scan for Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn as well, which is our members only group page. So use those tools and resources. Before we move on, I'll hand it over to Catherine to recognize our sponsors and hand it to Brenda Boissonneau to begin our program. But I just want to take a moment to thank all of you and recognize all of you now as opposed to the end of our program. To thank Brenda, Jonathan, and Matt for preparing this, for Kibibie for your generosity. You are so much fun and such a bright light, and I cannot wait for today's program and the future programs Kibibie will be providing. We have not posted them yet. They're not yet available, so please stay tuned and check the CoreNet website and the Monday newsletter. Those you should anticipate for late January and late February. If you enjoyed today's program, look out for the next two. But most of all, I want to thank you guys. Your time is important, and where and how you choose to spend it, it's precious. And the fact that you've chosen to spend it here with us and with Kibibie today means a lot. And we recognize that. We don't take it for granted. This is our last program of the 2021 year, and I can't think of an absolute better way to move forward with joy and with optimism. And I hope that all of you take that away from today's time together as well. So that's it. Catherine, if you'd like to recognize our sponsors, that would be wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Erin. Very, very well said. And I can't improve upon that, but I echo all of that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. I'm Catherine Sanford. I'm with Liberty Mutual, co-chair along with Erin of the Career Strategies and Development Committee, and also have the honor to serve on CoreNet New England's Board of Directors. So at each of our sessions, we want to give a big shout out and thank you to our corporate sponsors posted here for their support. And then also to our platinum sponsors and our gold and silver sponsors. So thanks everyone for your continued support of these programs. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brenda to introduce herself and our speaker.
Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon, everybody. I've had the pleasure of working with our guest speaker, Dr. Kibibie Springs, for a few years while I was at Herman Miller, and we're thrilled that she agreed to join us today. And really what Erin had mentioned is going to be the first of a three-part series. And it's to engage in a conversation about well-being and how integrating growth mindset, positive psychology, intentions, and grit can really help us have better outcomes as it relates to our lives professionally and personally. I think of it as a little bit of, we're so focused on doing everything for everyone else first, our customers, our coworkers, our family, our friends, and almost like putting the oxygen on, you know, the mask on for yourself before putting it on others. Similar to that as far as taking care of ourselves. And what better way to kick off, to wrap up this year and kick off the new year in 2022. So Dr. Kabibi Springs is a workplace well-being knowledge lead with now Miller Knoll. She shares workplace well-being research and tends to the ergonomic and well-being needs of organizations by focusing on their most important asset, which are people. Dr. Springs is an IO psychology practitioner whose doctoral research focused on rest and recovery as it pertains to employee well-being and technostress. She has an extensive professional background in corporate and employee communications, relationship science, and positive psychology as a manager, consultant, and coach. So with that said, I will turn it over to my friend and former colleague, Dr. Kabibi Springs.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and thank you all who are here today for being interested in this topic and wanting to improve your own learning and development. I think that is the first step of a growth mindset. So you're already one step ahead. And I have a really exciting and very applicable program planned for you guys today. Brenda did such a great job of introducing me that I'm just going to add on one more thing about why I'm here to present this to you today. I am very passionate about activating individual self-agency. And that is our own ability and autonomy to steer the course for our personal and professional success. We've learned a lot of things about our ability to grow our capabilities. We've learned a lot of things about what well-being means to our professional lives and our personal lives. And I believe that we can have both professional success and well-being live harmoniously, but that it is a new skill set and it's going to take some practice before we're all very adept at it. So let's get started with learning where this whole thing around mindset came from and what we're going to do today. So the 3 sessions over the next 3 months are really designed to help you learn a little bit about the research in a particular area, and then some complementary skill sets that can help you to reignite some habits and behaviors that may have fallen off track, or to create some new things that are going to propel you personally and professionally towards your intentions for the new year. Now, each session is going to include about 25 to 30 minutes of just a verbal overview for me about the science and the research that backs up the application that we're going to practice. So you're going to learn something about the capacity for human potential, and also participate in 2 working breakout sessions with a partner to help begin moving your own plan forward. Now, the goal is that at the end of this, you will come out with a simplified version of a complex body of research, but focusing on a research application to a real world problem or a life and work management strategy that is important to you. So you should come out with some kind of an action plan and have an opportunity to crowd share with a partner some ideas that they may have or have tried. I find crowd sharing to be a really great way of learning something or some way of doing something that you may not have been thought about yourself. Overall, this is an hour or 50 minutes for you to do some of your best thinking around something that's important for you to move forward. And so we're going to begin with some foundational knowledge about our brains and wellness and well-being. So you may not have known, and believe it or not, even though I have just completed a PhD, I did not realize until I did some research that during the 90s, they called that the decade of the brain, because that is when the scientific evidence was revealed that showed that you can teach an old dog new tricks. During the 90s, it was discovered by the scientific community that stem cells actually exist in the adult brain, which meant that there was substantial scientific evidence to explain that our wellness habits can promote brain change and that we can rewire our brains thinking through a lifelong process. And that process is termed neuroplasticity. So if you're very into your brain's functioning from a health perspective, but also how you keep growing into our older age, we're all living much longer. So this this need to be as fully functional and to like expand the limits of our brain takes on new meaning when we think about the age that we're living to now. We all have the potential to live to be a centenarian, and that's an exciting thing. So in other words, our learning capacity is really limitless. And knowing that now, there are many bodies of research that show us how to make the most of that time. Now, when it comes to wellness and well-being, we're hearing this a lot lately, and sometimes the terminology can get confusing for people. But the important thing to know is that when we are nurturing the capacity of our brains and when it's optimized with the fundamentals of human well-being, then we are fully nurtured. We can live as holistic beings. So these two terms can be used interchangeably, but they do possess different qualities, and they also very much work together. So well-being refers to a more holistic life experience, and wellness is those activities that really support various aspects of our physical and mental health. So we need wellness activities to support the whole concept of actually getting into well-being, which is a good feeling condition of existence that these wellness activities help to bring about. Since most of us spend our time working, the reason why workplace well-being has become a very primary concern for a lot of organizations is because it is very much tied to their return on investment, because well-being really helps to fuel some of our employee satisfaction, our engagement, and we're all constantly trying to keep that in sync with the demands of work. By attending to the needs of the mind, body, and spirit, we're creating cultures of well-being where we're prioritizing how people feel and how their feeling is able to allow them to execute their best work on a day-to-day basis. So across our lifespans, we're going to require even more extra effort for learning. We're seeing a lot of terminology about what the future of work looks like: an agile worker, someone who's extremely flexible, someone who is constantly not just has a learning capacity, but also has a greater desire to learn. And so that is going to be the new skill set that most of us are going to either have to amp up or learn to adopt. And those skill sets are supported by positive thinking, a growth mindset, and grit. They all possess a wonderful toolkit to help you manage your intellectual and emotional tolls in life, because we all have things going on that are pulling on us in various directions. And it also provides a process for more conscious practice that helps to build our agility and resilience and our long-term learning potential. So the research has really matured to illustrate an overwhelming science-backed evidence, as well as individual testimony to the fact that consciously directing our thinking can have an exponential effect on our growth and our development in many ways. So in the next 3 slides, I'm really going to dilute down these 3 bodies of research to just the actionable insights that will allow you to evaluate and to create a practice that will support you in developing your skills in each of these areas. In that worksheet that was dropped into the chat, you can take some notes, and I'd like you to start thinking about some intentions that you have for the next year. And I'll give an example of that before we introduce that activity. But this is going to help to launchpad your breakout period, so you can start thinking about some things that you are very interested in focusing on and accomplishing in 2022. I'd also like you to know that there are some resource pages on the last page of that worksheet that have some links to some videos of each of these researchers' works and some TED Talks or some condensed videos. I tried to find the shortest that I could so that you can explore a little bit more from their own words what their research means to the world and to the things that we're trying to accomplish. So let's start with positive psychology. Positive psychology research shows us that it is possible to nurture human flourishing, and that positive psychology interventions, or PPIs as they're called, are really simple activities that serve us by creating our ability to reframe and explore perceptions that favor positive behaviors and outcomes. Now, there are 3 pillars that are central to the field of positive psychology that you can apply to the creation of PPIs as healthy lifestyle habits or organizational cultural habits. They are positive experiences, so this sense of creating for yourself and others an acknowledgement of a positive experience when it is happening. That might be in the form of gratitude or giving someone a sincere thank you. Then the next thing has to do with positive individual traits and how we foster positive thinking so that it creates more positive behaviors, not only to others, but also towards ourselves. And then positive institutions involves this collective action of behaviors and organizational intentions that really benefits all stakeholders inside and outside of the business. These are the things that are embedded in our culture that lead to good customer service and good customer service practices, treating all stakeholders of our business as a part of our own organization, and holding the same behaviors that we do with each other internally to everyone who touches our organization, so that we're having a positive impact holistically on our communities, our global organizations, and our global communities. Now, within this discipline, there's a lot about studying related to positive emotions that entails three things. One has to do with contentment with the past, happiness in the present, and hope for the future. So with all PPIs, sometimes it is about reflecting on things from the past that gives us a set context to understand that we can experience positive emotions in the future. So some kind of reframe point for remembering that good things happen as well. Happiness in the present, which is the modalities around this have to do with things like mindfulness practices and meditation that helps to draw us to the present moment so that we can enjoy what we're doing in the now and not be so worried about what happened in the past or what's happening in the future. But then when we do focus towards the future, we hope that with positive psychology that people focus towards the future with a sense of hope and excitement for their future. And so PPIs are like, I refer to them as daily essential vitamins. These are the things that you're going to drop into your lifestyle that help you to develop a stream of constant expressions of gratitude, kindness, and optimism, which can provide the fuel for exercising a growth mindset. Now, growth mindset, if I were to look at these three bodies of research as a pyramid, I put positive psychology at the bottom. It's very fundamental to the way that we behave every day. Again, like that daily essential vitamins. And then growth mindset would be the next level up. And this is where we start to recognize some wonderful things about our capacity to grow that we might have previously, before all of this research came about, have blamed on genetics. I wasn't built that way. That's not my forte. I don't have a strength in that area. What the work in growth mindset, which is spearheaded by Carol Dweck, shows us is that we don't have to, we don't become great by just relying on our innate talent, that we can actually build some of the talents that we need with effort. And so we get through our life with a combination of both natural talent, but also effort. And so the research in this body of work shows that people who are consistently and naturally strong in certain areas, they don't necessarily reach levels of mastery and top levels of excelling until they put in certain amounts of effort. And so the studies have been done on students as well as professionals, nonprofit workers, people who volunteer, to find the same things, that it's not about what you've got, it's about what you do with it. So except in very extreme cases of strong genetics, our genes really don't define anything about us, which means that we have an incredible influence over our skills and abilities, and likely a lot more than we think or give ourselves credit for. So a growth mindset is about consciously stretching our boundaries and creating stretch goals for ourselves and kind of taking stock of the successes that we have had to prove to ourselves that we can go even further. Now, the final one, which is the top of the pyramid, so to speak, is grit. Grit is what the researcher Angela Duckworth, who actually spawned out of Martin Seligman's work in positive psychology and Carol Dweck's work in growth mindset, they've all built upon each other's research to discover new things. And what Angela Duckworth brings to the research bucket is that grit is this passion and sustained persistence applied toward long-term achievement with no particular concern for rewards or recognition along the way. Now, there are 5 characteristics of grit, so now would be a really great time to break out a pencil and jot some of this down, as they are not included in your notes. But I did include some TED Talks for Angela and some other references that will give you some indication of the research that she's done and some places to read further about her research. So the first characteristic has to do with courage, and that's our ability to manage fear or failure. Now, when we were talking about growth mindset, one of the things that was shown in the research that Angela Duckworth built upon is that people who put much more effort into their learning, even if they were naturally good at something, they managed to succeed at far greater levels than those who didn't. And so what Angela Duckworth's research shows is that there is a certain amount of courage that people have that allows them to push towards their goals even when they're facing defeat or failure. And what they take away from that are the lessons in the defeat, not necessarily the defeat itself. They view it as a stepping stone for getting better. And they think that that is like a prerequisite for really high achievement. You have to fail in order to achieve something extremely beyond your current capabilities. The second characteristic is conscientiousness. So there are 5 core character traits of personality, and which are openness, conscientiousness, introversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And these are part of the Myers-Briggs Big 5 personality test. Now, conscientiousness is one of those that is most connected to grit. So what this shows us in the research is that people who have a high level of conscientiousness, where they go beyond being achievement oriented and dependable, but they actually have a belief system within themselves that the actions that they're putting towards a particular task are for a higher purpose that speaks to them in particular. Maybe it is about being the best professional person that they can be. And so they always tend to walk in a way that exhibits the highest level of professionalism. Or if they're very conscientious around money and you're an accountant, your level of care towards your details as an accountant are going to be very different than someone who just thinks they're crunching numbers for the day, but they're not necessarily connected to the end goal of saving as much money as possible and where those extra resources might be able to go. So they have a bigger why as to what they do, and that kind of guides their level of achievement and how they go about their work. Perseverance is the third characteristic. And this really has to do with our ability to achieve long-term goals, which takes a lot of practice and a really set intention on what the purpose is of that practice. So let's think about someone who has like a mastery level of perseverance towards one talent. Maybe someone who's a jazz musician, where long hours of practice must go into play in order to reach the levels of someone that they admire in their field. So it's not about doing something just one time, but it's about putting in the time to not only practice, but to make that very small, sometimes imperceptible improvements that don't necessarily bring about a big wow, but that you can notice as I got a little bit better at that. And next time I'm going to try to get a little bit better at this. So it's about taking a goal and breaking it down into the longest set of milestones that you can think of and figuring out what would it mean for me. What would mastery look like? And then what are the little milestones along the way that lets me know I'm actually getting much closer to that? So perseverance is something that I think we all really struggle with. It's the sustainability part. It's maintaining the passion and the courage for long periods of time, because some of our most important goals are not going to happen overnight. It's going to be about, setting up a framework for them to thrive over the long term, committing to the process of what it's going to take to get there, and knowing that we're committed to that long haul. The fourth characteristic is resilience, and resilience gets a lot of airtime right now because we are looking for very resilient people in our professions. But what resilience is as a part of grit is the optimism, confidence, and creativity. It's that thing in yourself that says, you know what, I just hit a road bump, but here's what I learned, going back to the growth mindset of picking up, what we can take away from this as a learning opportunity. And it draws our head upward and moves us forward towards the goal, despite the obstacles that we're facing. It's that part of ourselves that says, everything will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, then it's not the end. So we have this just commitment to making sure that the vision that we can see so clearly that we've maybe committed heart and mind to, that it is possible, and that just because we're not experiencing the success that we've expected at the moment doesn't mean that we've hit the end of the road and that we need to abandon that ship. Now, some goals definitely do need to be let go of, but usually there's another goal that replaces it right away. So it's the knowing when you have tried all things and that this is just not something that is going to be possible, or it needs to change and shift in shape and form in order for it to be so. But it's remaining very optimistic that if there is a solution to be found to get there, that you're going to find it and that you have the creativity within you to make that possible. The final characteristic is about excellence. And I must stress that excellence in this context means very much not perfection. So we're not striving for perfection and excellence. Excellence is a very forgiving concept, and it allows for you to embrace failure and to use that failure as your quest for improvement. It's a toolkit for you. So excellence is about knowing that I might be disappointed in the outcome. I might be disappointed in not reaching the goal, but I can still say that my progress or the way that I planned this was as excellent as I could have done with the information that I had. And so it allows for some disappointment, but it doesn't take away from you the effort that you put in. And it, as they say, it kind of collectively, all of these characteristics really fuel our fire so that we can endure and progress on our goals every day. Now, grit has been shown in the research to really highlight those who have super high achievements, and why even people who enter into the same pool on the same achievement scale, why some of them succeed and some of them don't. And so grit and growth mindset work very much together. They're bedfellows in the research. Growth mindset says, hey, people who maybe excel naturally, if they don't have a growth mindset, they're not going to excel long-term. And grit says, this is why people excel long-term. It's because they have this extra body of characteristics that they've been honing for probably years that really sets them apart and allows them to go the long distance and to excel even when others might think